Yeah, welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight, and as you can see, Sonia Barrett is back. And today,
I love it.
yeah, let's start the introduction with a blooper. Yeah, we are going to talk about ancient wisdom and neuroscience. Who would have thought that the two will meet? Sonia, would you agree that we have actually three brains? This one, the heart, and the gut?
Yeah, I guess I would. I mean, obviously they're all interconnected, but they're all operating to some degree independently, and then they obviously integrate. And I think, it's interesting because we do have neurons in our gut as well as in our brain, and then there's the communication that happens between the gut and the brain, and of course then you've got the heart that is the major generator in the body. That those three together are, I think, the big deciding factors as to how our emotions, how everything is being processed. Because at the end of the day, it is our feelings and our emotions. It's these sensory, emotional sensory experiences that are being processed in the body. I mean, when you really break it down, because unless the sensations are coming through the body, you're not really able to engage it, whether it be a heartache or joy or whatever it is, you're gonna feel it in the body. You feel it in the gut or your heart, you know, and or your head, your mind. It's an interesting system.
Yeah. And sometimes you cannot really put your finger on it, but as we say, my gut feeling is there's
Yeah,
something wrong with the situation.
yeah,
I probably don't want to interact with that. And
right.
usually it's a good idea to follow that impulse.
Absolutely. And, so we say our language is interesting because we'll say these things, but I don't think that most of the time we really hear what we're saying. They say, my gut feeling, or I don't know, I get bad vibes from that person. So we say a lot of energy language. We're just used to saying it, and so we don't really recognize the depth of what we're saying, or a heavy feeling in somebody's chest, um, about a particular matter. It just all of it, absolutely. Intuition, and I should say, by the way, excuse me, I'm getting over a sinus infection, so um, every now and then I feel like I want to sneeze. Um, Intuition is something that needs to be cultivated even more. And sure, women have had more of a tendency to connect more with their intuition. And there's lots of men that do, but I think simply because of how we're wired, and I think it has to do with that maternal part of us, whether we have children or not, we're wired. We're just kind of wired for that. We mother other things and people in different. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
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 So it makes us so much more like connected. Like you'll feel if something was going on with your mom, you'll pick that up, and she'll pick that up with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that even if it's not a relative, if you're close enough to someone, somehow you start to be in that that's not the word I want to use, but this interlinking,
Mm.
this web, you're why can't I find the word? Anyway, your fields are now truly crossing. You're more connected in that sense. So you're picking up a feeling. I kind of have a feeling I need to call this person. So we're looking at all of that. And if we follow that, like you said, if we are more in tune with that and more accommodating of those things, I think we would be so much more protected and guided. And when I say protected, I don't necessarily mean that we need to be in fear, but let's face it, we do. You know, we live on an incredibly wonderful, beautiful, and hostile planet environment. And I don't know, I think the hostility is more humans than anything else. You know, it's like you're constantly running, but it's not from tigers, lions, and bears, just people. So so I think that that's a part that is a natural, that's a natural built in. If we look at it that way, it's like the a system is built and it comes with all of these different components, and the intuition is necessary because that's going to keep us um, direct us. That's like our GPS to some degree, if we have to bring it into those terms. But that part is our navigating, more of our navigating system. Like it's gonna let you know, don't go left today, go right. Or you get a feeling that something is coming, something is happening. And then you learn to follow that. That's because, you know, we're not just operating here in this field, we're operating on all these other levels and all these in all these other fields. And what I like is what really confirms that is you know, Princeton with the consciousness research project that's been around since, I think, since the 90s, where they're able to they have a machine that detects the shift in wave in brainwave levels across the planet. And what they find is when there's a collective spike when something big is going to happen, even like 9/11, when something's big is going to happen. And that's because we are connecting in the more of the ionosphere. It's like our I want to say our minds, but there is that part of us that sort of, you know, is beyond our atmosphere here. And so we're tapped in on these other levels. And so collectively, we are aware of things that are coming. But on the more conscious level, or in the Hertz field that we operate in mostly, we're so invested in that field. We're just so invested in playing there that we ignore these other levels of us. And so that's why some people are more like, oh no, I get a bad feeling about it. And other people are completely just oblivious and just floating in this field. But it's
Yeah.
just natural. It's naturally part of who we are. It had to be. Because think about it. It's it's part of our actually our survival um construct. It is primal. We see it with animals, you know, that they kind of know something is coming, and they've shown that, like when
Mhm.
Sri Lanka, when the tsunami was hitting and gonna hit, and all those animals took off, they were like gone. uh so we're the only ones that are slow to things because we think that we are like so the top of intelligence. So we oh, it's not logical. Oh, it makes no sense. So we get lost down here, and then it makes us ignore, right, that part that's running anyway, your intuition. And it's not like it stops, it's just not, it's we're just distracted, so we don't really pay attention to it.
Yeah. Have you heard of mBit?
mBit, why does that sound so
mBit, it
familiar?
stands for multiple brains integration techniques.
Oh, okay. Okay. I need to look into that a little bit further to talk about it, but yes, I have.
Mhm. So, in other words, scientists are aware that
Uh,
these three brains can be pretty out of balance.
oops.
And I wonder, for instance, the microbiome that is in our
In
gut.
your gut. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You're wondering if what now about the microbiome?
Yeah, how that affects our thought patterns, for instance. If
The
it's
microbiome, how it would affect our, well, I mean, it could be what came first, the chicken or the egg. Is it the thought patterns that's affecting the microbiome? It's, you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's so it is. It is definite. They're affecting each other, no doubt. No, absolutely, no doubt. And you know that because why? You know that because when you have a knot in your stomach, you know that because you have a knot in your stomach, right? And so that does become disruptive to the microbiome. If you have enough, if that knot is continuous, ongoing, and you're in stress like that all the time, which many people are, that microbiome is going to stay disrupted. And also, what is going on in the microbiome with all these other organisms that some of which you need, as you know, and some of which are more parasitic and are feeding surviving off of the more acid state of your microbiome. And see, a lot of times people don't realize that your thoughts can be very acid, and you know, and then your gut obviously gets very acid, and your, I think your thoughts affect you more than anything, because if your thoughts are continuously acid, or should I say, if you are in
toxic.
a happier frame of mind, okay,
Mhm.
if you're in a happier frame of mind, you're more content, there's a calm with you, and you eat certain things, you're less likely to have it affect you in the way that it will if you're already in a very acid toxic state. Then you eat that because you're already acid, and then acid, as opposed to more of that emotional balance. So we're, you know, we're seeing this. I mean, there's just this science that does show the impact of our thought process on the whole system, and then the information gets sent from the gut back up to the, you know, the brain, and then the brain is obviously taking that information, and um there's a couple of things that's happening. There is going to be an interference with the messaging system, which is the neural pathway, so you're going to have interference with that. You're also going to have um patterns that are going to, that could possibly become uh, permanent, in the sense of these neural pathways that are now created. It could be an intense fear, obviously, all the time, right? That's going to keep the limbic system in that continuous fight or flight state, and then all that sort of spins out from that. There's so much that can spin out from it, but because the brain looks for patterns, we're establishing these patterns and the behaviors that the brain doesn't really decide. It doesn't make decisions per se for us like we think, but it does take the information. It's an interface system, so it takes the information, and it basically is just taking orders, and then it establishes what seems to be our normal, right? So you get certain now hormones that get um, sort of are interrupted. Then we get, then people's, you know, they have problems sleeping, so now we have our circadian rhythm is off. You've got the our serotonin and our melatonin is off. I mean, it's just like it's this whole spiraling. It's a domino effect that happens. So then, instead of the brain, instead of being producing more calming, like GABA is supposed to calm us automatically. When you get into a frenzy or in shock, the brain is designed to automatically come back to some sort of a calm by producing the right hormones for that. But then if that doesn't happen, then now we get just continuous spike of cortisol, and adrenals are thrown off. So you see how we get into these situations that we don't understand. How we get into, now you get people with these sleep issues. Now they're getting diagnosed with generalized anxiety. It's to me, what I see is it's very difficult to just say I'm going to fix one thing. And I think that's kind of been more like what Western medicine, the issue. It's like you can't, it's just the whole person. You just can't, because it's such a domino effect on everything else. Right. So when somebody says, well, I have sleeping issues, they come to me and they can't, sleep. I'll do things like neurofeedback and light, photobiomodulation, light therapy, and those things. Yes, it's going to definitely help them to interrupt those pathways that have been created, or help to reconnect those messaging, those neurons that are supposed to be communicating and they're not communicating. It's going to help. But at the core of it, it's like, okay, so when did this start and what happened? What was going on at the time? It's very hard to, I'm just going to fix this thing. That's what happens with cancer. I'm just going to cut this thing out. It's like something happens. No matter how great we are, there's things that happen that the body holds on to in a particular area. Generally, it's the weaker organs, that these stagnant emotions could be inherited,
Mm.
right? That are there, and so the weaker organs are generally what gets disrupted. And the heart, a lot of times people have issues with love of some sorts, whether it's especially love of self, but that generally stems from how you interpreted feeling loved as a child. How in relationships, what have you allowed yourself to feel? Have you always just been a giver, and you're not able to receive? It just can't be one way. You have to be able to receive as well as to give. So it, it's the whole system. The whole system needs to be rebooted. The whole thing needs to
Well,
be like reset.
yeah. What I have noticed, usually I'm a good sleeper. I do not have a lot of problems with sleeping. That can change occasionally when there is a full moon.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
it takes me a little bit longer to
Hmm.
sleep. And as a child, I was a sleepwalker at full.
Oh, I did too for a little bit. Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did too.
But what I noticed recently when we had a lot of these solar flares,
Hmm.
that affected me quite a bit. And it took me like forever. I stayed up sometimes until 2 o'clock because I didn't get tired.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But these are situations, and not everybody is affected by it in the same way,
Right.
and that is
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But I know, it will pass.
Right, right, right. Everybody does. I guess we all get affected all day long by we're aware of the solar flares, but there's a lot that goes on in the environment, in our cosmos, all day long, all the time. And I do believe we're impacted just in different ways, and that impact is happening based on many different things about us as individuals. But yeah, we are the environment. We are, we're made of the same stuff um, as the cosmos, and I think that's the part we have the cosmos running through us, and we're running through the cosmos. So with all of these particles um, that are actually moving through us on just on a moment to moment basis. But the solar flares, yeah, when they happen, and they happen really big, or a full moon. Now that's why generally they do parasite cleanse like 5 days before the full moon. They tend to, in the body, obviously we're talking about the gut too, they get more active right around that time. And again, everything is just basically, it's just science as to how that energy impacts them, why they get more active. And if you're going to clean them out, try to start it 5 days before the actual full moon. So there's all kinds of things that make sense scientifically, and that they're not just, we're just saying these things. And so when they would come up with it was Hollywood with the werewolf, here at the full moon, maybe he needed a parasite cleanse. Maybe that's what it was. You get a parasite cleanse, you won't be turning into werewolf. So, but it is all kind of interesting how it does affect uh, all of us in different ways. I don't know if I've noticed. Now that you said that, I have to pay attention, but I don't know if I've noticed that. And some of us don't really need to sleep 8 and 9 hours. So there's that. Everybody doesn't have to sleep 8 hours, but it's the quality of the sleep that is making the difference. You can sleep deeply for 2 hours and it'll be like 8 hours. I strongly believe that, because that's what counts. It's not the length of sleep, because you can be sleeping 8, 9 hours, and I've talked to people, I've seen that, and they wake up tired.
Mm,
They did not sleep. That was not a deep sleep, because that's where the repair process happens, is during the sleep cycle, during REM sleep and non-REM sleep. That's where hormones are being made during the sleep cycle. And so it requires those cycles to be happening so that the hormones are being produced or synthesized during that period of sleep.
mm. So let's have a quick look at our three brains and how they are set up and how they function. Would you agree that, let's say, the brain in the head
Mhm.
is analysis, strategizing, perceiving, thinking, and giving meaning to things?
Yes, I would say that. You said is strategizing, perceiving, giving meaning to things. I think you said something else. Um, yeah, it's like a translator. It, like I said before, it's not really, when I say it's not really governing you in one sense, but it is taking instructions from you. So it is going to interpret, and it has access to everything. So it's not like it doesn't. It's, 360-degree view of everything between here and outside of this time and space. However, your brain is going to filter um, what you are seeing according to what it detects as your level of perception, or what you're available to, what you are open for. So it's just regulating based on that. Like, okay, well, this is the box we live in. Okay, well, then I'm only going to show you and engage with things inside of this box. But the more you expand that, is the more it gives you access to more, I guess, components or aspects of the brain, which is why, it seems like we use small amount of the brain, but at the same time, we're using all of the brain. It's a matter of what are we aware of. And so the brain is just allowing of whatever you say. Okay, we're stretching this a little bit more. Okay, now I'm seeing a little bit more.
Hmm.
um, and we see that with, with meditation. That's why meditation has such great impact on brain response, and how the brain then is able to help to regulate the rest of the body at that point. But yeah, that's why this mindfulness or meditation is such a huge thing, and that is as ancient as it comes. With that part of it, with meditation, it's the technology, really. Meditation, on not on the this very commercial level. Okay, that helps, but we tend to take everything and make it trendy in a way that makes it just waters it down. It reduces it, so it becomes just trendy. And we don't always, most people don't really get into the heart. Like, they aren't able to really get there. One reason is because we're lazy, and it requires so much more. It requires such a commitment to sort of cracking through, to breaking through, going beyond the stage or the programs, then going beyond the general programs that human beings live by, because there's a general set of conditions that we operate by, and we are comfortable in there. We just want to go just enough where we go, oh, I meditated, I feel so calm, I feel, so much more balanced. But that's as far as we go. Meditation on these high levels can take you far beyond anything, because at that point you are operating way beyond the brainwave, the frequencies that that is more available than to this version, the simpler, this version of humanity, or being human. It's yeah, you want to go beyond that. And we see that with certain monks um going into more gamma waves, where they're able to regulate their body and blood pressure. And if you can do all those things, then obviously the those faster waves, the more you're able to go further and further into allowing the brain to do that. Sure, we're going to levitate, we're going to do all kinds of things, but hardly anybody gets there. Not, at least not in our common commercial life that is marketed to us, right? So life is suggested to us all day long. They go, okay, here's your prescription for the day, here's your prescription of life, and here are your protocols, and you live within that context of that. Because if people didn't, Judith, if people didn't, can you imagine what that would be like? The whole system that would not work. The political system wouldn't work. None of the governmental, the corporate system, educational system, nothing would work properly, because people would be in such a complete level of power, of self ownership, that everything else would seem what? Absolutely minuscule. It'd be so minuscule. And then you wouldn't need the medical establishment like that, because the diseases and things that we deal with are really just related to the field that we operate in. It's related to this lower level field that we're operating. So if we're operating on these higher capacities, then the body is not going to deal with the same level of fear and of primal survival that's going to trigger it into disharmony. So it's very interesting. You look at it, and you see it, right, and it makes sense. But then as soon as we get done talking here or listening, we go right back out into the matrix, And boom, as soon as you walk right out that door, somebody tries to cut you off. And it just brings you right back in. You're like, what in the hell? So here you are, you're right back in it again. Oh my God. Or you call, customer service, and we're constantly brought back in. Is it constantly being triggered and stimulated? Then our whole body's reacting because now we're so upset. Then we got to tell five other people about how upset we are. And so this dance just goes, oh, silly humans. We're so funny.
Okay, yeah, that's absolutely true. There's always somebody that, or something, some event that will,
Some external thing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So then we have the heart. Yeah, feelings, emotions, compassion, valuing, feeling, and connecting.
Oh yeah. Once again, so you're naming those things that once again are going to get uploaded to the brain. It just gets uploaded, and then all those other decisions get made there. But yes, the heart the heart also is known to send all of that information, or I can't say all of it, but I know it sends that information to the DNA. There's supposed to be a major communication between the heart and DNA. um, and you figure your grandmother or great grandmother, or great grand or great great whatever, whoever those people are, may have, say, experienced not just a social or collective experience, but just within their own environment in the home, or maybe uh, whatever, just was upset, or in a major way, or how they felt about themselves, or how they were treated. And that information had such strength to it, in the sense of that frequency, that it impacted that person in a way that that message gets, because everything gets recorded. Now how it plays out, that's up to us, but that information is recorded. Excuse me. And then it's sent, so then the DNA has that data. And of course, yeah, we look at epigenetics. You don't have to be any of that, but the information, because we're these massive libraries. Everything is a library, this information, and that information does get traveled through to the heart. I mean, to our DNA. Um, Love. It's always about love in some capacity, though. How we end up feeling about ourselves. Always something about love, and broken or disappointed, or then there could be joy too. But there's all of that that is carried in this main generator. um, and then you look at what is it involved in. The heart is involved in um, in 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 the blood flow. I mean, it's obviously everything is involved there. The lungs, um, the traveling of blood through the system. And you have people with, major circulation issues. I guarantee you, if you look at these circulation issues, and then you connect it, you look at the heart, and then you can look at their past emotional conditions, issues, or they might tell you about great their parents or grandparents, or they might say that my father and my grandfather and the father before that, they all had heart problems. That's just not happening just because. It's like, okay, you can't just go, okay, so I'm just gonna try to do everything I can, as far as food and all of that. That's fine too. But I think just the acknowledgement of something happened, something happened. And most times people don't do that. We just get caught in this other part of it. But I think to just be able to just acknowledge that, wow, so this is information, this is data that I don't really need this anymore. I don't really need this information anymore. We don't need to have that, and I don't need to pass it on. And the way I help to heal that line is to say, okay, I acknowledge there was pain, but here I am. I am the result of a whole line of people, and I have the opportunity to say it ends. It's just the simplicity of that, and then you're taking steps to disrupt that, to interrupt that, to override that, to change that. You start taking those steps, but the understanding and the acknowledgement, the brain hears that, the body hears that. It's like, oh, okay, all right, so we're not doing that. Okay, but now we need to do go, sort of re-engineering. Reverse engineering. It's now okay. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna remove all of the tentacles that this one thing has had in all these different places.
Mm.
And also, what's interesting too is we're talking about the heart, but we're talking about, yes, the fact that the heart is taking this information gets uploaded to the brain as well. It goes to DNA, obviously, and it connects with the gut as well. But also recognizing that as how the brain creates these compartments, these file cabinets, right? These file cabinets that has like in your computer, like a main folder of disappointment. You might have a folder for disappointment. And in that folder, you have all these various things that have happened that have supported this idea of disappointment, and you run them. Now, you also have a folder for how to cook, a good steak folder, how to cook a good steak, and then you have all these various aspects of what that is, or being a car mechanic. The whole thing is that there's a folder for everything, right? There's a folder for everything, and we that's how we're able to reach in and run things again, or they run automatically because they're sort of a part of us. How to get home, the car ends up there. It's like, woo, it knows your address, and it knows the route, and it gets you there. So we are in um this constant space of automatically collected data and stored information, and information that we hang on to, that we're keeping, and information that we keep running over and over again, even though a lot of times it's to our detriment. But with the heart, we want to look at that. We want to look at that. We want to be able to, it's not forgiving per se, like other people. I mean, I get it with the forgiving, but what I find is it's always really about me and how I interpret certain things. So it's not just, okay, I forgive this person. You can do that, you can forgive that person, but more importantly, you have to look at what you feel the impact has been on you, and how you took that in, and how you may have interpreted that. And that to me starts to give you back your power, because in that moment you realize I have the power to then changed even my perception of it. Our feelings get hurt, things people say to us, but in the end, when you look at it, you go, that's what I did. I go, well, what did that person really do? They didn't really strangle me. They didn't, what did they really do? When you break it down, I'm like, what did they really do to me? My feelings are absolutely hurt, but what did they really do? And you stop, and no, people are going to go, yeah, but it stopped me from feeling my best, or feeling like I could do this, or it stopped me from, and then in that moment you hear yourself, You hear yourself. It's like, okay, well, I'm saying that all those things stop me from doing these things. But then why? An interpretation that I have of myself developed from this. That to me, just thinking, there's an interpretation of myself that developed from this. That person is not even in the picture anymore, but I have this interpretation of myself. It's just an interpretation, though, of myself. It's an interpretation. And you focusing on that, I'm telling you, it may take you a little bit of whatever time is. It's, measure it. But to be able to just stop and start to see, it starts to give you back your power. And wherever you need to now get support, in addition to what you're doing for yourself, it will work much more because you're not just going to get support from someone just saying, here, I'm going to throw this all in here and you tell me what to do. But you're coming already with a surrender to your own self. And that to me really stimulates the healing. And then the heart, the breathing can happen. And then the proper flow of oxygen can be available to you because it's in, oxygen is carried by the blood. And now the proper electrical support is there. It's your heart, the whole system is electric, but the electricity with the heart from the heart, and of course the cells need electricity, they need water, it's a conduit for electricity. You see the whole system. And if everything is acid, if the heart is acid, because you can't let go of some things, well, I don't know, I can't let that go. Yeah, but she did or he did. Nobody is being hurt but you. I guarantee you. The only person that's really being hurt is you, because your body has to constantly struggle to keep you alive and keep you going while it has to spend a lot of its energy on this acid, the results of this acidity, which the heart doesn't pump properly. It's not working like it should. It's skipping too many beats, or it's too fast. You know, it has to make up for that. So there's a lot of compensating, and in order to do that, it has to pull resources, pull the energy from one over here to use it over there. So now we're really out of balance.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So, and then we have the gut brain, intuition, self-preservation, and mobilization. And do you think this one also is dealing with, yeah, I would say intuition. That is where I get my first signals.
absolutely, I definitely think that. This is second guessing that we do of ourselves, though. Second guessing, the uncertainty, don't trust ourselves. And I've dealt with, many clients that are working on being able to trust themselves, their judgment, their decisions. And that's where we kind of shy away from our intuition because we don't feel that um, we, we're sort of conditioned to believe that someone else always knows what's best for us. And that we're not responsibly enough, or just trustworthy of ourselves anyway, to be able to trust our intuition. But it definitely starts there, because that's that self-governing tool. And if we listen to that, it's going to make such a big difference in what you do and in how you care for the whole system. But even in dreams, I've had people say, yeah, I had this dream that I needed to take this thing for something that was going on in my system. It the information becomes available to you in many different ways, because that part of you, if you're available to it, it's going to try to reach you in whatever way. It could be through dream time, but or it could be through someone else coming to you and saying, I was thinking about you, and I just felt like telling you this, and this, or somebody just happens to mention it. Doesn't matter. Your that part of you will find a way to get the information to you, but you have to be open and available for it and realize that myself, that part of you always has your back. It always has your back. And so yes, being guided by your intuition and realizing that your intuition is the access. It is the fact this is because that part of you has access to everything beyond this field that you're part of. This Hertz field, all right? This radio wave, this frequency, it has access beyond that. So it is seeing things that have happened, that are coming, that are falling through time. I think that's one of the things that we don't really look at is just like they talk about the stars, like what we see in the sky. You know, they're long gone. They burned out. They're long gone. And so we live in, yeah, we do live in a sort of past. Many things have happened, but it's how it falls through time and to us down into this field by the time it gets here. So, yes, that's why it gets picked up. You have an option, no different than the reflection you see in the mirror. It's, I forgot whatever, how many of a second that it's behind. So, the reflection you always see in the mirror is always just really a past version of yourself because you've already happened. But by the time the light has to hit the mirror and reflect back to your eyes, it's behind. You've all that has already occurred. So I think you start looking at this bigger picture, of the movement and the processing of time and why your intuition is able to bring you information on things that are coming, or options or guidance of things, choices that you could make now to save yourself,
Mm,
from something else.
yeah.
Yeah.
Would you agree that your intuition is better when you have healthy boundaries? Not in the sense that you become completely egoistic,
Ugh.
but that you also are not a doormat for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. That's all part of it. That is totally all part of it because, um when you are allowing of your intuition in such a more balanced capacity, it's because you are feeling even more balanced. So therefore it reduces the fear that you may have, or the insecurities, I should say, that you may have. Because the only reason why we become doormats or any of that for other people is because there's a level of insecurity that we're experiencing, and it makes us vulnerable to certain behaviors, or we're accommodating of certain, frequencies, certain energies, certain people. Because nothing is just happening just because there is an energetic invitation for it. So intuition, when really accessed in, or allowing of it, yes, you're definitely going to be less of that. We have to be assertive. There's a certain level of ego that's necessary, but it's ego, but ego not with I'm better than you, but
Hmm.
there's a sense of assuredness. You're more assured, and you feel more grounded in, you have a foundation that you trust of your own self-awareness, right? But it's not self-awareness that poops on other people. That's not it. It's just self-awareness of the bigger picture, that you are, um truly so much grander in the scheme of, of everything, and that you have access to, really, to all potentialities. See, when we can understand and act on our lives more in that way, what happens is we stop operating so much from these primal survival, levels because how we feel about other people, or maybe our jealousy or our dislike or our whatever that is, it's self-protection. We're always ready to have our, I like to say, our internal military up, guarded. We're always scanning for making sure that there's no invasion. Like nobody, invasion, nobody's coming to attack me. We do that with our own selves too. We protect ourselves from telling ourselves the truth a lot of times too. So we're always worried about that, protecting ourselves, on guard, on guard. And all of that is primal. Now, it's essential, so it's just how we use those instincts that come with this whole, part of the operating system. It has allowed humans to stay alive because they pay attention. They know what to do next, to survive. But we cannot live in lions and tigers and bears like that, oh my, all the time, because that's what throws us off, and that's where we live right now, is the constant lions and tigers and bears. Get security. You got to make sure you got the best alarm system on your door. Just the commercial, people are breaking in. The woman's hiding in the closet because somebody's breaking in, or insurance for your car, or insurance because in case you die, you have an accident. The news, how many people got shot and killed, the war here, there. It's just constant, and the pharmaceutical commercial. So yes, so most people, without realizing it, they live in a constant state of what if they're on guard, safety. That is so detrimental to the system. It puts the system in continuous stress, and stress is known to be what? It disrupts your longevity. It is the greatest experience, stress, that actually affects how long people live. But if you engage your natural tool of intuition, most of those things you don't have to worry about, because your intuition says, again, you know, don't go here, or don't do that today, or check, the door, not in a fearful way, but your intuition is telling you these things. And you just learn how to use it without it, you're not turning it into a fear thing. You're like, oh, okay. And I trust that. Then you don't make that left, and then you hear, oh, there was an accident. Like, had I gone 5 minutes before, there was an accident. And so everybody has seen it, Judith, at some point. Everybody has seen something, where they trusted their intuition and said, I just don't have a great feeling about this. And they just don't go,
Yeah.
or don't do whatever. But there's also a fine line between intuition and being now in this constant fear. So then there's that balance too. And it's being able to check in with yourself to, wait a second, I am actually more invested in looking for a problem. That's not what intuition is. It's not scanning for a problem. Intuition could be something great is going to happen. I've felt that. Like, I don't know what it is, but I feel like an excitement about something. I don't know what. So that's also intuition. And I know something wonderful is coming. Something that's going to really feel great is coming, and then something will happen. I'm like, "Oh, so that's what I was feeling." So it's for any and everything. Don't make it about self-protection. Just make it a realization of access to any and everything that you're being sort of notified energetically, right, on things, and that's what you're tuning into.
Hmm. So what did the ancient people did better? No, what did they do better? And I mean,
But they were more connected, I think, because they didn't have what we have now. I think one of the things that we have to look at is the fact that we have, okay, so technology is wonderful, but also we didn't have in intermediaries. We didn't have things to sort of that was an extension of our thinking and our mind, and so for the ancients, yes, they were forced to use to activate more of those sensory systems, to be a bit more hyper aware, hypersensitive, to their environment, and so utilize that. We today, no, we couldn't survive lions and tigers and bears like that, or dinosaurs. We're not made for it, because we are we live in an environment of conveniences, which is fine. We're not knocking it. But I think to also realize that we live in such an environment of conveniences that, yes, it's reduced many of our skills. Not that they can't be revived. Yeah, it can. But I think to recognize that it's reduced our skills because we don't need it, because something else is going to notify us or think for us. And the one thing we don't want to lose, we want to be able to have the best of both worlds. We want to be able to utilize our natural skills, our natural ability to tune into our environment, as opposed to just waiting for, relying on. Now, for me, I go hiking. Everybody knows that all the time. I've been doing it for many, many, many years. And I know some people freak out at the fact that I never take a cell phone with me. The only time I ever have a cell phone is if I'm going to actually do a video, or talk, but I never have it with me. And they say, well, you don't have your phone with you? You should. And I always think, but what
like,
did our ancestors do?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, what did our ancestors do? Because of our ancestors, the human race is here right now. Um, and so you think about that. And to me, for me, it helps to keep me sharp. I am listening to nothing. I don't have my headphones on. I am truly out there because all I want to hear is the sound of nature. I
mm,
am available to hear, a lizard move in the bush, or figure out, is that a bird or a lizard? Or there's a coyote up there, which I'm not real big on the coyotes at all, because to me everything is a wild animal. So they don't even if they say, oh, they don't bother you, okay, so I'm out there anyway, even though I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking, I see one, and then they're staring at you now just because people are feeding them. They don't just run away anymore. But for me, I don't let that stop me, but I'm aware of my environment. I keep myself seasoned in that sense. I am aware of my environment, aware of what's going on behind me, to the side of me, in front of me. That was the difference with them. You know, they can remember, they would show that where, you would get, they would mainly show that, well, with all the cultures, with Native Americans, Africans, um putting their ear to the ground, to be able to hear, footsteps or horses or whatever coming from a distance. They're about a day away, right? So we laugh at that, but we can be that sharp. We can be that sharp. And that's just incredible when you think about it. That we can, and those are some of the differences. And of course, their level of innovation has led to our level of innovation. Um, they were stronger, physically they were stronger, because we don't use the muscles the same way that they did. We don't. I'm not saying you have to climb, but I'm just pointing these things out because these are things I had to look at for my, just myself. The fact that your muscles aren't as strong because you don't use them like that anymore because we drive, we do all of those things, and we don't walk as much. So we have to walk, even to go, people are going to the gym to exercise. You have to really recognize the difference between that. Because even somebody that just does gym, they go out on a hiking trail and it's not the same. It's harder for them because the gym is different than working with the ground itself. So for me, it's just looking at all of that, and then you have an appreciation for those that came before, because if you show up with all you show up with is nakedness, nothing, that's all you have is your body, 2 feet, the land, and you think about that, where do you start? Where do you start? There's no shelter. There is nothing but the land, and I will gather my food. So we get into, obviously now we can be vegan, we can be vegetarian, we can be carnivore, we can do paleo, we could do all these things, these diets that are trendy. But what I came to realize, at one point, obviously being vegetarian, but it's been many years, but what I came to realize is that food was really more so determined by the environment. It's really more so the environment. It's just not like what we've come to think because it's trendy. The environment determined what they were going to eat, right? How they were going to eat. Obviously, a lot of the back then, they weren't going to survive on just vegetables. They just weren't going to survive on vegetation. And I often look at that, even, when they talk about slavery, and I say, the slaves would never have survived just eating vegetables. You just could not. The horrific nature of that experience, they had to be strong. Their muscles, their bodies to work from dusk till dawn. This environment today would never survive something like that. We could not survive something like that. Many of what our ancestors experienced, we could not survive it today. We don't have the body structure for it. And obviously, not chewing, not eating meat or hard or things that work the jawbone, and the face, the structure, the shape of the face, the structure of the face, that changes. Everything changes because everything adapts to what we are doing according to the environment. And I think that's really important that people stop and really recognize that. Why are you doing what you're doing right now? I had a friend of mine, well, he was actually, because since I don't do Western medicine, he was a chiropractor, but he was just also, oh God, what do you call it? He was alternative, but he was incredible at what he did. And I remember he said that about, he said, vegetarian diet works in other places. He goes, but here, this is not the environment for it. It's like, this is not the environment. And you have to look at that. Are you in a place that is the environment for the diet that you are doing? Sometimes we do ourselves more damage because it's just not, the environment does not call for us to eat a certain way. So yeah, they weren't doing it based on the reasons we do it today. Yeah, don't kill the animals. Well, there's an agreement with everything, and they did that. They did because they had to. Cow became important. India with getting milk. Oh, we can't drink milk. You tell people what they could not do then if that's what they had, right? There is famine. They moved from one place to the next. Tribes that did that. And why did they do that? Because they were looking for land that they could survive. The animals do that. We've seen that with this documentary on elephants. Watching them was just fascinating, incredibly intelligent creatures. and watching how they traveled, I forgot for how long, and took care of the babies traveling because they had to get to this other area because of the water that they were going to have and so on. So we have to stop. We have to stop with the foolishness. We just have to stop. You have to wake up from the prescription that those that have the opportunity to govern, because yes, they are the money machines of the planet, that govern what your next move is, what you do with yourself and your body. You have to really just stop that. You are in charge of this vehicle. It's yours. No matter what anybody does, at the end of the day, it's still yours. They can do some, obviously there's mind control and so on, but the vehicle is still gonna still belong to you. It's got your signature on it. It's signature to you. So yeah, what do you do? And those three brains that you talked about, you see more about how that operating system requires you to be very conscious, come back into a more conscious state of, this is a sensory system. This whole body is allowing me to experience being a human being, and I want to have a conscious relationship with it. And you say that to your body. It's like, okay, I want to be aware of what it is that you need to keep going. You tell me. That's also like part of your intuition. What is my body trying to say to me that it wants, what it needs? And then you listen to that first and then trust where it's going to guide you. So it doesn't mean you don't see a doctor. It doesn't mean any of that. It means that if you have to see a doctor, you're going to be guided as to the doctor that you need to go to. It's all of those things. All right. So it's not avoidance, but it's trusting what the direction is that you're being guided to take.
Hmm. Yeah, I think sometimes we have a tendency to underestimate our forefathers, and when we look at it from the little that we have, the Egyptians, Sumerians, Mayans, there were great cultures. I don't agree with everything because I abhor human blood sacrifices, for
Yeah,
instance.
that's always a slight problem.
Yeah,
Cutting
problem.
out someone's heart and eating is generally a problem.
But the fact alone that we couldn't build the pyramids, yeah,
Yeah,
that gives me pause to think. And it also means I have to respect that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That we couldn't build the pyramids, you said?
Mm,
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things that we don't know about what we were, what we could have been, and what we could have done. I think that's an absolute missing piece that we don't have, because everything can't be carbon dated, and there's just a lot of history we have to recognize that there's a lot of history that is not available in in simple text or any of that. So I think there's a whole bit that we don't, they don't have information on, and there's certain things that they have information on, but they can't explain it, so obviously, so we don't hear about it. But I think that there was a time, yeah, I think there was a time when humans had incredible abilities and incredible skills, and I think we've gone through there's a level of devolution that sort of happened, and I think we're picking up the information we have. We're sort of picking up possibly from like the second half of this human thing. I don't think that human beings necessarily, that was the beginning, the way the beginning has been explained, but I think that there was a point where humans were much more, much grander. So I think we go through these ebb and flows of this simulation, so to speak. And we're in another upswing. That's why technology is expanding the way that it is. So yeah, there's another upswing at this time, and we have to see if we get it, if we are able to take that in the way that enhances us, meaning that if we can see that technology as it is rising is really an opportunity for us to activate our own selves. I think that that's something that we need to be able to look at. That's really why it's happening. It's happening because we have to become grander than the technology that's being created. Obviously, there's humans that are creating this technology. We're the ones that technology is being designed off of us. Idea of artificial intelligence is being designed off of humans. A lot of technology based on the human brain, which is the most complex thing that there is, trying to figure it out. And so it has a lot of access to a lot. It is not much it doesn't have access to. It has access, but it's filtered according to the level of reality experiencing that we are allowing ourselves to have. It's allotted to, growing new limbs, and all of those things are finally truly being looked at, that those things are all possible. Growing new teeth is, it's limitless as to what we can do. So if we are looking at that now, does it stand to reason that at one time we did, and there's a complete shift that happened on the planet, and that's the history that we have recorded. That may, very well be the case again. There's some that will evolve beyond how this planet operates, and maybe the history will not know of them. It's sort of like this wipe, this sort of mind wipe that happens. And we can only detect certain things. Now, what's interesting is all of that information is always in us. All of that data we carry, there is no information that we do not carry. It's the way it is because everything is made up of information. So we carry the data, the meaning we carry the history, all of the information of the history of from the non-beginning, the point of non-beginning to this point in time. Streams of information, all the fields are data, information, everything is information. Every
Mm.
cell in our body is data, is information, everything about us. So we have access, like the single cell of a plant. All of the information about that plant is encoded in that single cell. um, and it's a formula, it's a similar formula that uh, is through everything. So what we want to know, we are the library, we truly are. What we want to know is readily there, and it's up to the individual as to what they want to access. Are you ready to access certain things? Some people have made it clear they don't want to. They don't want to do any of that. They just want to be here. They want to enjoy themselves. Fine. But they're not ready to open Pandora's box like that. And I get it, because once you can't unopen it, it's like unseeing something. Once you start asking these questions, and the questions get deeper and deeper and deeper, um, you can't help but change. It's going to change you. And sometimes, and it's the greatest fear we have, is change. We don't like change. It's too uncertain and unfamiliar. Um, so I think we have to look at the power that we hold. And if we make that decision to not open the box, then at least we're conscious of that. Like, I'm making that decision. I don't want to expand any further beyond this. I'm okay with this. And that's okay. Nobody fails. Nobody runs out of time, really. It's just it's a change of perception, and that frees you. That frees you, because then the fear also goes away.
Mm. Yeah, we talked briefly about the solar flares, and I sometimes wonder if these, intense energies and which also changes the electromagnetic field, if that will give us a push to start a cycle again where we are more connected with what we once were.
Yeah, I think all of it is I think that we are just there right now. We are there right now. I think we are there right now. I don't know, once again, I don't think it's everybody is going to do that. And I know that's the feeling, people always get. They feel like it would feel so good if everybody was on board. Well, what's this, everybody's a free agent. Everybody is not here for the same outcome. You're here like you're on a tour or travel tour, or you're an experiencer. You're an experiencer and you've come to do this. You're an experiencer, and I always like to say you're a researcher as well. Um, so I think that the individual has have been shown in ancient scriptures and so on, there are individuals that seem to come and seem to stand out. And these individuals that come and stand out, let me talk about like Buddha and Yeshua, um, they come and they did what we saw as something different with how they actually maybe shifted from this time and space. And then there's so many that we'll never hear about. There's a lot more than we think. And like I've said on the show before, I do feel that there's so many of these people that live today, uh, right, live today here, maybe a little bit differently, but they've been here for a very long time. Probably just they operate differently. Their perception of things maybe have changed. Maybe they're able to dart in and out of time and space. They're able to shift in a way that we are now being more people are being I should say people are being more open to those possibilities. You first have to be open to the possibility of something for it to even be entertained, for the changes to happen, to bring you to that potential, to that possibility. So just because we don't hear about these people, I completely understand that. I completely understand why you don't hear about them. You only hear about people that are living the prescribed reality. That's the only thing you hear about. People that are living the prescribed, suggested reality. So it doesn't give you any ideas in you trying to, become more this superhuman self. Those things disrupt the human experience, the way it's being played. People, you get to have rich people, poor people, super intelligent people, people that are not intelligent. You get to have the polarity. You have to have this polarized experience. You can't have it if everybody is the same. You can't have that. So for many, many reasons, it it plays out like that till but honestly nobody's stopping you from waking up like that. Nobody. You get a lot of distractions, but nobody's stopping you from any of us. It's just the work involved, and just don't take that in that life is just what you see and what you're told, because it is not. There's more. There's other people who have crossed into new versions of being human, being a human being, than what we've been sold.
Yeah, exactly. So, Sonia, I thank you so
Mhm.
much for coming. And
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
yeah, so that was it, Night Flight for today, and we see you on the next one.